Welcome back to Faith, Family, and Politics. As you can tell, things are a little different tonight. Making her political debut on Faith, Family, and Politics is my mother, Yvonne Metcalfe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate this, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to be here tonight. I am running for State Representative, Indiana District 89. Please vote May 7th in the primary and November 5th in the general election. I started my journey in politics. That's why the show is called My Journey. And it all starts out with God, as it always does. And He knows everything. This is His timing. It's His plan ultimately. And all we can do is try to cooperate for our part. So I'm going to start back at the very beginning. Many years ago, people who have heard me talk already know this story. But I started in politics when I was 18 and voted for the first time. My dad thought it was important to do that. He was in the military, and he knew the sacrifices that people had made for our country, for our freedom. And he said it was a right and a responsibility. And he told me how to research my candidates, and he took me through the entire process, and I've never forgotten that. He was in the Air Force. But God was also involved in that process, because at that time, we were Christians, and my dad believed that being a good Christian meant making good choices in life. And you don't just leave it in the church and shut the door. You're going to use it in your life, and also in politics. That included the ballot box. So he taught us that righteousness exalts a nation and sin is a reproach to any people, according to Proverbs. And so as you know, right now, there are many people in our country who do not believe in God, and they are very vocal about it. And it's very heartbreaking. But there are also many people in our country who, like me, go to church and believe in God and want to do the right thing, but are the silent majority. And I think it's time for us to stand up and speak up. Yeah. Thank you. There's another verse in Psalms that said, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." And that's something that he knew it was important who we voted for and who we put into office. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm running. So as the years have passed, I've always prayerfully considered who to vote for, and I make an effort to be informed on the candidates. And if I have an issue and I want to talk to a legislature, I don't agree with this, I think we should do this, then you call them, you write letters, you send emails, now you text message. There's a lot of ways that you can communicate. And so I've always tried to be involved in the process. So fast forward a few years, we got to the Obama years. But before that, I realized after voting for many years that when you would vote for someone, they would say one thing on the campaign trail, and then when they would get into office, they would either do it halfway or not at all. And that was pretty disappointing. But when we got to Obama, there was something different. And Obama said one thing and did the exact opposite. And as a Christian, I look at that and I'm like, that's like the Antichrist. And he would say one thing. He would say, for example, on healthcare, I'm going to make healthcare affordable. And the prices went right through the roof. And then he would say, I want to bring everyone together. And in the next breath, if you remember Ferguson, white people, particularly police officers, are racist. So I knew we were in trouble, and I felt that we were really in judgment from God because of the way that our country had been going, the compromises that we had made in the church, and just not standing up for what is right. And it's been a long process and a long time, and so I started looking for some answers and asking some questions, and of course I started praying for our country. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. That's a promise from God. And I took him at his word, and I began to pray. And I was seeking him, and I was seeking a way to help and to get connected to someone. And so I looked at the Tea Party, and they were involved, and there was a lot of people who started out with that movement. And we got some good people in office. We got a few people in. But during that time, I actually ended up with Patriot Voices, which is a group that is run by Rick Santorum, a former senator from Pennsylvania, and also a presidential candidate in the 2016 campaign. And as part of his campaign, I was on the prayer team. And so I learned a lot in that process. I also learned a lot of things before that, how to knock doors for candidates, some things that we can do at the local level that I didn't realize, like being a delegate. It's not a big time commitment, and it's something that anyone can do. It's one day, and you can make a huge difference if you want to, if you choose to do that. So there are a lot of things you can do. I got a lot of education through that, and of course I read his book, Blue Collar Conservatives, and it answered a lot of questions about where we were going as a country and gave solutions, which was really a good thing. So fast forward 2016, of course, Trump won. And he said one thing, and when he got into office, he did it. For example, I'll never forget the Merry Christmas thing. You would think that is such a random thing, but he said, we're going to say Merry Christmas again because we had become so PC, politically correct, that we had to say, oh no, we can't say Merry Christmas because it might offend somebody. And he said, you know what? We're going to say Merry Christmas. So that was, maybe somebody might call that a minor thing, but he said that when he got in office, he did that. And he said he was going to build the wall, and he did that. And he said he was going to put America first, and he did that. And I was shocked, and I was so thankful. And I said, I really want to be a person like that, a person of my word. And I was really encouraged. And so that was something that of course he was in office, and the whole time he was in office, he was being attacked by this other part of our country. Really, I think it's a smaller group than we think, but they're very vocal, and they're very targeted, and they're very organized, and they're trying to take us down. And if we don't take a stand, we have to take a stand. If we don't do it, then we will lose our country. So I'm still praying to this day that we can get through all of these things, and of course the things he's going through now, which have just been terrible. So it's been about 16 years since Obama ran for office the first time. Here's your hope. You can keep your change. That's what I would like to say to him. But we have Biden, of course, now, who can't string a sentence together, and the world's on fire, and we're in a disastrous mess, I think, because people just didn't stand up in the beginning. And some people did, but we need more people. And I think God is watching us to see what we're going to do, and if we're really serious. And so that's one of the reasons that I've taken a few more steps. So as I said before, I'm running for office in my home state, District 89, for the House of Representatives. I have met a lot of people along the way through the different campaigns I've worked on, the different groups I've been involved in, and just the protests that we did during COVID. And I'm amazed and so thankful for the people that I've met. So many people like me who love this country, and a lot of them love Jesus, and that's very encouraging to me. So I think we need to come together like that more often. And so I've had a lot of opportunities to push legislation or to push back on legislation and to support good candidates, and it's been amazing. But I'm only getting started. So my issues here in my home state are on my door hanger. Lovely. My first issue is that I am pro-life. The Constitution says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, which means they came from God and no one can take them away. Yeah. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Without life, we can't have liberty or the pursuit of happiness. So it all starts with life. And that's why I'm pro-life, I'm pro-woman, and I'm pro-child. And I think that we should, in a post-Roe versus Wade world, we should be looking at making adoption easier and less expensive and supporting women in every way that we can. Thank you. So my next issue is for our police officers. I believe that we need to back the blue or back our police officers, however you want to say it. Their job is difficult enough. They go out and put their life on the line every single day, and they need our support. And they don't need to have the criminal they arrested today back out on the street tomorrow. And so I'm going to look at the prosecutor's office and what they're doing, should I be elected, to see if there's anything that we can do to make a change there. And also, I think they need to be focused on their job. They don't need to be focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. See that go. Right? They need to have the courage to do their job. They need to be able to handle a weapon and catch the bad guys. That is their job. So I want to support them. I also want quality education for our children, which is a big issue for anyone who has children right now. And you see all these groups popping up at these school board meetings and making a difference in their area. And I'm so thankful for that. But we still have a lot of work to do. We really need to be vigilant on that. I think that right now they're being taught things that they don't need to know. And they're not being taught things they do need to know. So they don't need to know about gender. They don't need to know about sexual things at a very young age. They don't need to know about, they don't need to be taught to be racist with the CRT. So, but they do need to know how to read, write, and do arithmetic. And they need to know their history. And they need to know that our country was founded on our Judeo-Christian values. And we should not be ashamed of that because it's the truth. And we need to stand on that. We need to pass that on because if we don't tell them, they won't know. Okay, so education is important. Also, fiscal responsibility. For Indiana, we've done pretty well with this compared to our other Democrat states, but I would like to continue with that, and of course we can always do better. And right now we have a mayor who is wasting a lot of money. Everybody complains because it's just the latest example is the stadium for the professional soccer team when he's already building a stadium and it's not completed yet for the soccer team that we already have. So, and he's redoing Circle Center Mall, and a lot of those things are just, and he's doing the Red Line buses, and a lot of these things have just turned out to be disasters and have not panned out the way that they want them to, and I think they need to do better planning and just better use of our taxpayer dollars. And I think that the other issue is the roads. Everybody knows about the potholes, and it is just terrible. And when they do work, it's so disorganized, and we go out there and we can't get where we're going, and it's not done well. So that's something else that we need to look at as far as being fiscally responsible. Suzanne Crouch is running on axing the income tax. I would love to look at that and see if we could do that. I also would like to look at the property taxes and say we should, at least for our seniors, they should not have to pay property taxes. And if we can do something about lowering the property taxes, of course, a lot of that goes into education. And so there's a dual thing there, the problems with what they're being taught and the problems with how the money is being spent with education. And that really is a big part of it. Okay, so my last point here is limited government. During COVID, we saw government overreach in all areas. We had shutdowns. We had restaurants that could not open. They had to stand 6 feet apart. They could not give you a menu. You could not go to the doctor. You could not go to you had to wear a mask. You had to have a vaccine. You could not go to your family gatherings. You could not go to a funeral. It was ridiculous. And that is not America. That is not freedom. And that is not what our men and women in the armed forces died for. And so that was definitely a problem. And the governor of Indiana, who was a Republican, extended his emergency order for 2 years. After 2 years, it is not an emergency anymore. And so I would vote definitely to limit the emergency orders to a much shorter time period, and then they would have to call the legislature into session if they were going to extend it. And that way they can at least be accountable. And our agencies, as far as the health department and so forth, and as far as the cooperation from big business and trying to force people and saying that they were going to lose their job if they didn't do this, and this, those things have to end as well. So we would look into those things and see how we can make some corrections for the future. And so with that said, once again, I'm also running for delegate. It's very important. 4 years ago, I ran for delegate. I got to vote on the party platform. I got to vote for the Secretary of State, the treasurer for the state of Indiana. It only takes 1 day, and it costs you a little bit of money, but it is so worth it if we can get our voices heard in this process. And so I would encourage you, maybe for the next session, that you could do that. But that's something else that I'm going to be on the ballot on. I would like to ask for your vote. I would also like to ask that you prayerfully consider sending a donation. You can make a check to Friends of Yvonne Metcalfe for state rep and mail it to my address. Or you can go to my website at www.metcalfeforindiana.com. That's www.metcalfe4 Indiana INDIANA spelled out .com. Okay, and that's all that I have, and now I'm ready for questions.
Welcome back to our regularly scheduled programming here on Faith, Family, and Politics. Just before we get into the questions, I am your host, Joshua Cummins. Thank you, Sterling, for putting my name on there. That was quick. It's so good to have you back there. And just as a reminder, Faith, Family, and Politics is just one of many shows that we have on Revolver Broadcasting. So make sure that you're going over to our website, revolverbroadcasting.com, and checking out all the fabulous programming we have. And remember to share, because sharing is caring. You see that, James? I'm like magic.
Very magical. Magic man.
You need a wand.
Right?
No, I don't do magic wands. Just the hand motions good with me. And speaking of, next to me I got Brother James, my younger brother, who's also named James.
Yeah, we figured that one out, right? Good to be back.
We have to be certain, some of those folks out there, 2 and 2 is 5 for them.
1 + 1 is 3.
Yep, close enough.
It's a problem for sure.
That's one of those DEI math problems there. So across from James is our good friend Crystal Risotti. She's got a guy.
Yep, I got a guy. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Thank you guys for joining us on this very special episode. We're here to highlight our very good friend, the softer side of faith, family, and politics, Yvonne Metcalfe.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. We're back.
And just before we get into the questions, would you mind leading us in a word of prayer?
No problem. Dear Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this time that we can get together with friends and family and just enjoy each other's company and go over some things that are important and try to learn and be better people. Lord, I pray that you would just guide the conversation and we'll give you the credit for everything. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now, as you had your topics, you still have your flyer with you, perchance?
My flyer.
Notebook.
It's somewhere in the notebook there.
Yes, I do. Whoops. Yes, I do.
Well, I know that the first subject on there happened to be pro-life, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's right.
And I know for me, that's one that I'm a big proponent of. I'm definitely pro-life myself. Wanted to ask, what are your beliefs on pro-life? Where do you think we should probably draw that line? And legislatively, how do you think you would want to put that into motion?
Okay, so thank you for asking that question. This is something that I've been working on since I was a 12-year-old girl. I saw a picture of what happened to an aborted baby, and it made a huge impression on my life. And I said I would never do that to a child. With that said, in the past probably year or so, I've had some conviction about the way that I have dealt with it in the past. And I think it is time to make a stand. Some people are going to say that's unpopular, but I'm going to say that we need to stand on truth. And we have to quit, compromising on this, because the other side is not compromising. They know where they stand, and we need to know where we stand. And so for me, being pro-life at this point is saying that life begins at conception. And when I say pro-life, I mean with no exceptions. And so if a doctor's trying to save the three popular things, the life of the mother, rape or incest, if God allows that to happen, he has a reason for it to happen. And you do not punish a child for what some stupid moron did. You can throw the book at the moron. Whoever rapes somebody or has incest with somebody, those people need to be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. Mm-hmm. But it is not the child's fault. Mm-hmm. So we have to stop saying, well, we can kill the child because this idiot committed this crime. We're not going to do it. And so that's where I stand. Some people don't like that. Some people think it's harsh. But I think it's time that we stand there, because we can't say, if we don't do that, if we don't say this is life, if we don't say that, then they just keep pushing the envelope. Where's it at? 5 weeks, 12 weeks, 20 weeks. So we just have to draw the line and say, you know what? It's not ever right to kill a baby. So that's where I stand. As far as legislation, we have passed something in Indiana. I need to look at it a little bit more closely and make sure of what it says. We have one of the best bills on that, I think, but it still doesn't quite go that far. And so that's something that we could still do. We could still make it better. And so that's something that I could work on with some of my people that I'll be working with if I get elected in the legislature.
And I think the current one right now we have is it's heartbeat, right? Is that where we're at right now?
I don't know that it's heartbeat. I really need to look at it.
I'm fairly certain that we're at the heart. I think they called it the heartbeat bill when it was introduced. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's where we're at. But I would like to see it to just say, hey, let's end abortion. Let's just stop it in this state.
The good news is that one of the abortion clinics that has been open for more than 40 years has shut down just because of what happened, because it was turned over to the state and because we did pass legislation even though it didn't say that they couldn't do it, nobody wanted to do it after the bill was passed. So that was a huge blessing and an answer to prayer. But of course, we want to make that better because they're still trying to use the afterbirth pill or the
Plan B.
Plan B. Yeah, the Plan B. And so that's even more dangerous to the women. And so that's why I say I'm pro-woman, pro-child, and pro-life, because what we're doing to the women by allowing that is not helping anyone. It's just making, it can cause physical damage, it can cause emotional damage, and it can cause spiritual damage. So,
You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I remember back generations, women gladly would give their lives to save their baby. So
It's
if
true.
there was an issue in childbirth, it was just a given because women protected the innocent. They had lived their life. They knew this was a new life they were bringing into the world that would have a full life to live. They gladly gave up their lives to save their children if that was an issue. How did we get here to where now it's all about convenience and the woman's life matters more than the baby's life? I don't know how that shift took place. I've been racking my brain about it, but it's really sad to me because, again, you know, and I'm not judging anybody for it, but this is on a macro level, general level. I just don't understand how we got to this point where we're so selfish that you wouldn't protect the most innocent. And when I was younger, I didn't see it that way. So that's why I'm not judging people. I didn't see it that way because I was a product of the feminist movement, right? We grew up in that time frame. So when I was younger, I didn't always see it that way. The other thing is actually Dr. Ben Carson says there's never an occasion anymore when the mother's life is at risk from childbirth. Our technology has come so far, and they can see things so early on that's a false statement.
it is. It's just an excuse
It
to
is.
push the envelope.
It is.
And what was I going to say? The doctor promises to do no harm. So if they have a situation where the mother's life and the baby's life are both in danger, then you need to try to save the mother's life and the baby's life. And if
Right.
something happens, it happens.
Right.
But at least you tried.
And the other thing is there are so many other options.
Right.
Like I know when I was young, I always heard of Planned Parenthood, but I never heard of something like the Life Centers where they actually coach you and help you through the pregnancy and support you for those that don't have
And
family that support this.
They'll give you diapers and
yes,
food
up to
and
2 years old,
clothing,
even longer.
blankets, all kinds of things, just
Mhm.
whatever you need.
Right.
And of course, along with the emotional support.
And as an adoptee, there's that option.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think there's so many other alternatives now that it doesn't make any sense to make any exceptions.
I agree.
Yeah, and I hear that argument all the time from the left. I was like, what about the life of the mother? And you took the words right out of my mouth. It's like too many advances in technology for that to be even remotely an argument anymore. We're not we're not milkmaids anymore.
Right.
We've got actual doctors who go to school for a very long time to figure out exactly what to do in these situations. Doesn't mean there aren't a few exceptions out there, but I got to say that there's such a small amount that
Yes,
It's-
if any.
yeah, if any.
I haven't
that
heard
it-
of any.
I haven't heard of any either.
They make that statement, but there's no evidence to back it up. None.
Zero.
So it's like it's a false argument to me.
Straw man is what they call that. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's what I
Anything
meant.
to add to that topic, James?
I'd say this leads back to fatherless homes. A lot of it's from
Mhm.
fatherless homes. That's based off,
That's true.
more homes that have a father in it or more that, follow God. That's basically where it is. It starts with the man. And if the man's not there to lead, then what do you have? So, and that shows a lot of support down the whole line. So it just gives an excuse for a lot of the girls nowadays, women growing up, to go out, do what they want, and have no repercussions from it. They just go out and, oh, I'm pregnant. No, not anymore. And go out and do it a month later, another month later. And it's sad that our world has come to that you can just go, well, I can just get this taken care of next week.
Well, and I have to step up for the men in that case too. Granted, there are a lot of men who want the abortions. They don't want to have the responsibility. However, I have seen an increase in the past several years where men don't even feel like they have a voice. Okay, it took 2 to make the baby.
Mm-hmm.
There are more men now coming out saying, I wanted the child. She didn't. And why do we just have this like perception that women just are, it's the, I tell you what it goes back to. There's a pagan religion called the sacred feminine. If you've never heard of that, it puts women on a pedestal. That's why we have Isis with the little baby, and people idolize Mary with the baby. It's a feminine worship, and I think that's what we've fallen into because men don't have a say-so anymore.
And it's not to say what I was saying about, a woman cannot raise their kids without a man. That's not what I'm saying. Because trust me, I know people personally. As a great mother, multiple kids. She's done a tremendous job raising her kids, and plenty of God in that family. And she's done it without a man in her life. So, and I know a few others. So it's not just saying that they can't do it. It's just saying that you have more leadership in that essence. And more, someone saying.
It's always better to have your full family unit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your ideal
So
thing.
statistically speaking, it is better to have the father in the home. They have better chances of becoming a productive member of
Percentages
society, unless run-ins with law enforcement, which is the next topic on that
Yes.
pamphlet, if I'm correct.
Very good.
Nice segue.
Great.
So when it comes to the statement "back the blue," are you all in on "back the blue," or is it more of like, hey, let's talk about police reform, things like that, or what to what extent are you
Okay,
for
so
law enforcement?
I think that their job is hard enough.
Yes.
And I think that they put their life on the line every day, and they have to make judgment calls every day. And I feel like they need our support in that. And I don't think we should be super critical of them when things happen. Now, once in a while, there's something that might happen that needs to be investigated. But the way it is now, where every single thing is put under the microscope is not good. It's not healthy. So yes, I back them 100%.
Just to add to that, I was talking earlier about this to somebody, but our police chief of IMPD just announced yesterday, it came out in the press, that he's ordering an investigation of his own police department. Because last year, I think it said there were 23 police-involved shootings. And based on the amount that we're at now, he wants the feds to come in and do an investigation of the whole department.
Okay, can I just say this about the 23, what did you call them again? Police-involved shootings. You know what happens with a police-involved shooting? That means they're doing their job.
I know. I agree 100%. And that's frustrating, right? That's infuriating. But think about it. We have a billboard on the south side that says they're down 350 officers right now. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to, as the chief, when you already are down 350 officers, you're going to call the feds in to investigate your own people. Mm-hmm. What message does that send?
It's very demoralizing.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And I fully expect that 350 to go up because I don't see that there are going to be 100% of police officers that are okay with that scrutiny.
Well, and there's also a push from the left to start replacing a lot of officers with social workers, essentially. And I don't know how well that's going to go over. I think it's, as my aunt puts it, a lead balloon. That's about how well it would go over, I think. Because I mean, if you're going to
doing it already,
yeah, if you're going to a domestic violence dispute, I don't think a social worker. Oh, can you please stop hitting her in the face?
Right.
I don't think it's going to work very well. Yeah. So, I guess for there to be a little more nuance with police officers, that's why I'd mentioned reform, because maybe a little more training for that, and a little more training for. Because people talk about the insensitivity of police officers, and because they're like you said, they're in a very hard job, and just like any job, we all get a little bit numb to what we see in front of us because it's day in, day out, and so it's not like when the police officer usually first to get on the job, and they're like, they want to save the world, likely. And so they're a little more apt to listen to everything. So my proposal, I guess is what I should say, that would be like, for them to have a little more, not sensitivity training, that's the wrong word, but just come to more of an understanding of like, hey, this is how this situation could work. Here's how you could de-escalate, things like that, to where it doesn't immediately have to go to a gun.
Yes, and so what I was told actually by a police officer was that it was the community involvement that helps with that.
Yeah.
So if they're allowed to be in the community and be on their certain area, and the problem he said with that was that they're being divided up into these little units, and they actually don't have enough people doing the community outreach. Because when you're talking to the kids when it's not an emergency situation, then when you get into an emergency situation, you already have a relationship and you're going to have a better outcome.
Oh yeah, we had that in our neighborhood. When growing up, we had a police officer drive around our neighborhood and
swiftly, but he goes through,
and he would always stop and talk to everybody. We knew who he was, and he knew everybody else.
I have to say, because my dad was on the sheriff's department, I don't think people really can grasp when you're an officer and you're going to a call. You have no idea what you're facing. No idea what you're going to see when you get there. And the emotions that have to be involved with that, there are going to be some that come in hot right out of the gate because they're assuming things. That's a natural reaction. I'm not sure that there's a great solution to the situation. I feel like they're already being over scrutinized. You're basically handcuffing the cops. We have a prosecutor who you arrest him and he flips them out 24 hours later and won't press charges. And then they commit more crimes. And so you're repetitively dealing with the same person as a cop. I can't even imagine the emotions around that. I'm just telling you, I couldn't be one.
Yeah.
Because the fear, there is fear for a cop, even though they're trained on situational awareness and situations. You still have that fear. You still have that adrenaline when you're going on a call. How do you control that? Man, you got to be daggum good to be able to really control that and keep your composure going in. You have to be situationally aware, constantly checking your back when you're in a situation like that. And then you got all these people that don't support you, that hate cops. Okay, you don't know if I'm going to a call and it's about you, I don't know going in if you hate cops or not. I don't know. There's no way to know, right? So the risks are very, very high. And for the chief to order an investigation, I mean, it's just like stabbing you in the back. And to your point, like back the blue. Are you always going to have exceptions? Yes. That's human nature, though. You have that in every job, every type of career.
Well, and you talk about having control of the situation. That's another thing that I see a lot with police officers is like they don't have the physicality needed to take control of the situation. They feel like their only thing that they can do is go directly to a force that's beyond themselves and reach into their belt when they can do other things if they're held to certain physical requirements. I think that should be brought back to say,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Once a year you go back through and say, or however often it needs to be, once a year or every 2 years, and say, do you meet the physical requirements still to be on the beat?
Not only that, you need mental too. You need both. They see stuff that no one else sees, and that's a big mental break. Just like people in the military.
Yeah.
They see so much things that we'll never imagine to see in our lifetime, and it's more of a mental than anything, because there's something that could happen when they're out there getting a call. All you mainly get on a call is you get a code, you get a situation ran over on the microphone, and then they go out to the situation. They have to assess it. So it's either they're approaching that. Yeah, they're approaching that situation. Okay, this code, it's this situation, and it's either their adrenaline's going to be pumping and they're going to go in there guns blazing, or they're going to go in there calm, cool, and collective. So it's got to be, a mental big thing. I mean, as you can tell, most of the investigations that happen now, they shut them down for however long to investigate, and then there's to be an evaluation with anything. Something like that happens.
And let's say that one of those criminals that are on that call are as big as you or I, and not only that, but they're high on something that makes them essentially superhuman. You need somebody that's got high physicality that could hopefully resolve it in a physical manner, as opposed to having to reach into that tool belt. Because
I have a
hate
sibling
to see
who's
the lives end.
What do you call a bonus sibling? And
I was looking
she's
at
probably
Josh like, wait, what?
she's a bonus sibling, and she's probably 110 pounds soaking wet, and she's a police officer for the Terre Haute police office. So and literally I always tell myself every time I go down there, I'm gonna make sure I try to find her so I can give her heck and make sure she can take me down, because she's only like 5'6" or 5'5". She's little, but stuff like that. Yeah, you get guys like us that are especially me. I'm big as an athlete, so someone who's 110 pounds take on someone who's 300 pounds. That's going to be kind of a different thing.
Yeah,
you just take me down at the knees, but.
And the thing is that people need to have respect for the police officers. So that would eliminate so much.
Mm-hmm.
The police officer says stop, you say yes, sir.
Right.
You don't start running, and you certainly don't turn around and start shooting or fighting or arguing with it. It's just I think it goes back to the community involvement on that part. But
well, that's a whole different root cause. We have a godless society. They don't fear anything. They've been taught evolution, so they think they're animals. They act like animals. They're not being raised with any respect for authority. That's a whole different issue.
And that's true too.
Well, you know what would help with all that, and them being taught the wrong thing? Better education.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
Nice segue again. You win.
I've been looking at the
Josh,
cheat sheet.
you're on it. All right,
I've been
Josh.
used. That's why I asked you if you had that, so I could look at the cheat sheet over here. I got a perfect view.
Right here. Okay.
So I think, so when it comes to better education, I don't have a kid, so I'm going to leave it to these two to ask questions, because I'm the only non-parent here. So yeah.
So everybody's looking at me, huh?
Well, he's
I
a
got
parent
daughter.
too.
My
good.
daughter grew up in private school most of her life, so she actually got the pretty good, and it was Christian schools too. So she pretty much got the roundabout, but you had to pay money to do that. We got lucky and had help, but what is your stand on? I mean, I know they don't teach cursive writing anymore. They don't teach a lot of things. They teach now a different kind of math.
Common Core.
Common Core is
yes.
the worst ever. I did very well in math, a little bit of history. I took all accelerated classes for math. So I took all the way through trigonometry.
Same here.
And so when I look at someone trying to do a problem the way they're telling them to do a problem now, I just say no. I had a student actually show me a problem one day, and he actually did it the correct way, and I didn't stop him. I said, you know what? That's probably the best way to do it, because that is not what they were looking for, but that I still feel like that's the best way, and I don't know why they changed it. So
talking about your history, you said, we should know about our history. We had a pretty good, even though we grew up in IPS, it was pretty decent, structural learning.
If you want to call it that, sure.
Yeah, I can call it that.
We learned more on our own.
We probably, we probably, we learned a pretty good, decent amount, but way more, but a lot. We've learned a lot more than what kids do nowadays.
Yeah.
So I am kind of interested. Can you give me kind of a overview as far as history, like the history of our country?
I always think of what's not broke, don't fix it kind of deal. Yes, we should learn about our history on, your slavery, your presidents, all the stuff that makes America what America is, where we came from, what we are now. That should always be taught, but not the way it's taught nowadays. Now they just want to look at the bad of everything. Look at what we did then, and all this bad. We should be doing this. We should do this, and it's not that. Where are you kind of stand on that? Going back to the basics.
I think he's asking about critical race theory in particular. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So critical race theory is based on a lie, and so we should not teach it to our kids.
gonna argue
And that's why I support the 1776 project, because it talks about the richness of our history. And yes, there were mistakes made and things that were wrong, but there was also a very rich history of good things that happened that we cannot and should not ignore.
and things we fixed.
And things that were fixed.
I'm gonna
The Civil War was fought by white people to save black people.
right.
And, you know,
It was the bloodiest war that this country's ever had. Actually, I think it might be the bloodiest war on record. More than World War I and World War II as well. So
I'm going to caution everybody, though, CRT isn't taught in primary and secondary schools. It's an actual course in college. So the problem is they've adopted the theory of it and put it into what's called SEL, social emotional learning. That's taught in primary and secondary schools. And it uses the theory of CRT, but it's not CRT. So
it's all connected,
critics will always say CRT isn't taught in schools.
right?
Well,
Right.
not even history. I mean, history's not even taught in schools anymore. I've literally, my daughter, I said,
At
don't you have
all.
history? And she's like, no.
Government class isn't
no,
taught
they,
either.
they call it
History.
social studies, and then
Yeah.
they just extend it.
And
Yeah.
the social studies is every other country but ours.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to study our own history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'cause
We're
the-
more of ashamed, I think, than what, and that's the thing. We've come so far from what we used to be, and people just want to fall back into the old ways instead of learning from what we fixed already.
Yeah, where we stand out is because we're always trying to get better. And speaking of getting better, I want to be mindful and responsible with time. Where are we at with time, Sterling? So we're in a good place. Okay, so also on that same train of thought, being responsible. I see that fiscal responsibility is also on the cheat sheet there. And so, I mean, I guess if I were to go down the rabbit hole, for me, that this is where I become a little more libertarian when I talk about taxes, because I personally believe that tax is theft. I'd like to see them all go away. But that being said, when it comes to property tax, I heard you on the podium there talking about lowering it or getting rid of it for seniors and then lowering it for the rest of us. What would be the plans for you to implement that?
Okay, so they set a budget here in Indiana. We set a budget, so we would have to look at that and see, you know, where the money is going, and probably do cutbacks in other areas in order to be able to do that. Really would be the best way to do it. I just feel like there could be cutbacks in other areas, and I've heard some of the governor candidates talk about this, being able to cut back in each department and giving incentives to each department to make their own cutbacks, and in that way we can cut back the entire budget pretty easily. And also with the schools, I think I heard somebody with an idea about if you look at the cost of education overall, not just in the public schools, but in the Christian schools and homeschooling, and if you took that and did an average on it, with all of them included, then you might be able to come up with something that would be more reasonable for the public schools and say, look, you've got to be able to do the education. They're doing well with this amount of money. I don't know what to say. Is it 5,000 or I don't know how much per student, but
It's more like 14,000 was the last number.
that's what I
saw.
thought in the public schools. Yeah. So that is way too much money to spend on each student. I'm sorry. We just
But
don't
you
need to
can't-
spend that much.
I don't know what that's spent on, because parents have to provide
Everything.
tissues
Everything.
and supplies and
And the
everything else.
teachers too.
I
Yeah,
know.
the
Yeah,
teachers
yeah,
have
yeah.
to buy their own supplies also. So
yeah. So what is in that cost? Like, I feel like it's a fake cost.
I feel like it's the curriculum and it's the buildings and it's all the little gadgets and stuff so
And
they
the
can teach
jumbotrons on
so
the
they can
sports
teach-
fields.
yeah.
And
climate change and whatever.
all the things.
All the things. So yeah, we definitely need to look at that and make some cutbacks, and then we would be able to cut back on those property taxes for people.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you should bring up climate change because I was talking with a coworker of mine today, and surprised him. I told him, I said, "Yeah, I believe in climate change," and he said, "You what?" I said, "Yeah, I believe in climate change." I said, "Well, right now it's spring. Here's soon to be summer, and then after that, I think it's fall and then winter. Right? That's usually how it goes."
The climate changes.
Yeah, climate changes all the time.
Climate changes. Yeah, I agree 100%. If they look at it that way, I say yes.
Yeah, we could go. We was in the 30s. Now we're in the 70s and 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Indiana, we got climate change 4 times in a day. So.
That's true.
That's why I wear shorts and a hoodie to work. Prepared for everything.
Never sure what to wear.
And always bring an umbrella because you don't know if it's going to rain, sleet, snow, or even hail.
Right.
All of the above.
So I think that we've covered just about everything except for limited government, right?
Right.
And I don't necessarily have a question for that because off the top of my head anyway. So I know that I'd like to see the government shrink, but I really don't know what to ask to get you on a on a train to say, hey, this is what I believe, other than what we heard at the top of the show. Does either of you two happen to have any questions on limited government, perchance, while I'm still formulating?
Well, so as you mentioned in your opening, the emergency, the state of emergency that we're still in from COVID, that gives the governor extra powers. That's one thing that as a state rep, that's the governor, right? So how would you go about removing that type of thing? And I have a couple other general questions about the position, not necessarily on fiscal responsibility or,
Right.
limited
Okay.
government. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
So for limiting the governor's powers on that, they tried to pass legislation on it, and they finally did pass something, but it's not as good as it could have been. There again, I looked at it. Yeah, I can't remember, but I think that's something that we could look at again. They did pass something and say, you can't do that again, basically. But that's something, if we could just make it a little bit more clear and make sure that there's consequences if they don't, what the follow-up would be on that.
Okay.
Really not allowing the governor to color outside the lines as he feels, right?
Exactly.
He
Yeah, he
scribbled
can't just
outside
make
the
that.
lines. He didn't color it. He scribbled.
And also for the Department of Health, we should look at that and those other agencies too that stepped in and started to try to make laws.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And for the businesses that took advantage of that and tried to force their employees, there's a whole bunch of things that we could look at just to try to make it so that will not happen again.
So can I ask the general question? Because this is really important to
I would
me.
say so, yeah.
All right. So Todd Houston.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm
I
going
know
with this.
who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like the leader of the Republican Party, right?
Okay.
For the General Assembly type of stuff.
Yes.
I can't remember what branch he's in.
I think he's the
Or just
senator.
over it. Yeah. So what's happening historically in Indiana legislature is you have these committee chairmen, and they get to pick and choose which bills are going to be heard. And they take their directives from Todd Houston. And so he gets to call all the shots as to what actually makes it onto the floor. How will you deal with that?
I totally disagree with that, and I think there should be a change in the rules.
Okay.
And if I can make a change in the rules, I would love to do that.
You've got some partners
Yes.
in the legislature, in the General Assembly you would just jump right on board with them.
Yes. Absolutely.
But it's been a major issue and a major problem.
I realize that in trying to make calls and make changes,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I'm like, they would ask me, like I would call Todd Houston's office and they would say, well, what's your address and your zip code? Well, he's not your legislature. I said, yes, but he's making a decision that affects me.
That's right.
And so he needs to answer to me.
Mm-hmm.
But still, even at that, then then it's not fair for my legislature themselves to not be able to introduce something just like everyone else.
Right. And there have been a lot of good bills that never made it to the floor.
Yes.
Because there's that barrier there.
Right.
And no unilateral person should be able to make that decision.
I don't think so either.
Tyrannical.
It is.
It is, yeah.
And it's like cronyism. It's like the mob in a way, because the establishment Republicans stick together. They're Republicans. They stick together, and it has to go through this process that I think it needs to go away myself. But
I agree with that.
Yay.
Okay. So then they're not real conservatives. Then we call those neocons, and we need to see the neocons
or rhinos.
Yeah, rhinos, and we need to see them go away.
Yeah,
we need people who can think for themselves and are willing to stand up for what's right.
That's right.
Just like Yvonne here, and make sure that they're holding to the values of actual citizens and actually being a representative of the people.
Right.
That's the big thing here.
And I know
being a
that's your
representative.
heart. I know that's your heart.
It is, because I've been involved in it so long, and that's what I've been looking for when I talk to people, when I vote for people. That's what I look for. Are you going to represent my values? Are you gonna keep your word? Are you going to represent my values? Those are the things that I look for. So
that brings me to another general question. We hear all the time, the American people, both sides do it. The American people want. Well, obviously, you're going to have people in your district that are going to disagree with your position. How do you address that?
I have to do what's right, bottom line. So, and that's sort of the difference between a politician and a statesman, or a stateswoman, I guess you could say.
Ooh, I like that.
So you have to go by the laws, and you have to go by, what's right and wrong also. So I would stand that way.
Not what lobbyists pay you. And
no one has paid me anything for the record, so we're good. So
Sterling and I can bounce the lobbyists right on out of there for you. Can't we, Sterling?
Great.
He's over there bulking up. And he's wearing green, too, so you won't like him when he's angry.
That would have to be a Hulk kind of switch, because
That was like an Ant-Man joke.
Oh no.
My word.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so you really have to stand on your principles sometimes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jamie, you got any more general questions? Anything anything else you want to say about your platform moving forward?
No, I think we covered quite a bit.
All right, well, then on to the political portion. So I gotta get this iPad going here, and technical difficulties. There we go. Thank you.
Meanwhile, vote for Yvonne.
Yeah. I mean, early voting started the day of this recording, but make sure that you're getting down there and voting in person, because we want to see the the ballots actually get counted. But pipes might burst at 3 a.m., that kind of thing. So,
Oh yeah.
Right.
Right when the votes switch.
Right.
we want to stop
Just
that.
saying.
It's not too late to be involved either. You can be a poll watcher, and we can get that information to you somehow, I believe. Can't we, Josh?
Yeah, we can put it in the description below. So if you're watching this, just look underneath this video feed, or if you're listening on audio, just look in that description. It's also below the title of the show. Okay. So our first article of the night, Sterling is just shaking his head. This is a hot mess. Sorry, Sterling. First article of the night coming from Just the News. This is our national. We got two local articles. This first one, though, is a national article, and Crystal, you'll appreciate this one. From Just the News, it says, more than 2,000 arrested so far at pro-Palestinian protests on U.S. college campuses. More than 2,000 arrested college campuses so far, according to an Associated Press analysis of news reports and arrest data. Pro-Palestine demonstrations have been spreading across the U.S. Organically somehow. That's what they say anyway. Doesn't seem like it is. And police have dismantled protests encampments at colleges like Columbia University. On Thursday, at least 200 people were arrested at University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, when police cleared an encampment. The arrests came after officers spent hours threatening arrests over loudspeakers if people did not disperse, according to a report from the local news outlet KTLA. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators had occupied a Portland State University library since Monday. Officers had to clear the area and make arrests. They found extensive graffiti on the walls inside the library, as well as furniture stacked in barricades and caches of tools and paint balloons, according to the local news report. So they're taking over these spaces and trashing them, all because they want to support, supposedly, Palestinian,
protesters. I have so much to say on this. Can I just go?
Just jump in.
Okay.
Save me.
So a few days ago, I heard a third of the protesters that were arrested were identified as having no affiliation with the college or university they were at. Then it was updated to half, I heard today. So they're clearly not students. They're not staff members. They're coming from outside, and we're having a summer of love again. These activists are coming on these college campuses and stirring it up and agitating. So that infuriates me right out of the gate.
Hired hippies.
Only the hippies were nicer.
Right.
They weren't, calling for...
I heard something interesting on that, along those lines. Actually, if you look at the signs and they're printed, they're not homemade. That means it's an organized organization.
Yep. And they found 2 funding sources. Again, the colleges and universities are all running together in my head when I hear them in the news because it's all the same thing, just different names. But they did find money linked back to Soros. And they have found money tied to a Hamas organization in Gaza.
Which is a terrorist group.
Yes.
Okay.
So investigations are going on, just so you know. Another thing, ACLU filed a lawsuit against IU today. It made the news. I don't know if they filed yesterday or today, but it made the news today. They're suing IU on behalf of the protesters that were arrested and kicked off, stating that it's a violation of their free speech. Now, the reason they were arrested is because they refused to remove their tents, not because they were protesting. So guess what? A tent on a campus is not part of free speech.
No.
Has nothing to do with it. And yet the ACLU is stepping in and filing a lawsuit against IU. This is for IU in Bloomington on behalf of the protesters, saying it was a violation of the free speech that they had to take their tents down.
Okay, I would like to add to that with what you said in your article, because you said they were doing destruction of property. Once you do destruction of property, you have crossed the line.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Peaceful protest does not include destruction of property. Mm-hmm. And it does not include injury to people either, because I've heard that people have been beaten to death and all kinds of terrible things. One person was beaten unconscious, and that is not a peaceful protest. That is not covered by the First Amendment. You have now broken the law.
Even believe it or not, even former Vice President Joe Biden supported what you just said.
Oh, but he also said have to.
His poll numbers were going down too, but that's
no. But he also said we need to stop the anti-Semitism, but we also need to stop the Islamophobia. Now, the pundits I watch, we're going back to, remember when Trump said with the white nationalist group that supported him, he was getting all kinds of guff when he said there's good people on both sides. Isn't that exactly what Biden's doing now? He's doing the same exact thing. And he's not calling for any action against it. So it's stupid. 46 out of the top 50 colleges and universities now have protests that have popped up. Now, a lot of them in the news are the Ivy League schools, right? And isn't ivy an invasive species? Like when you get ivy, you can't kill it. Like it just keeps coming back, and it's bad for your home.
They're nicknaming it poison ivy now.
Yeah,
I saw that in an article.
yeah.
Which was
I'm just saying.
interesting.
There's some good news though, because if you didn't catch it, and you probably did, but USC, the University of South Carolina, students actually stepped up and protected the American flag on the campus. The protesters were trying to tear it down and put the Palestinian flag up, and this group defended the flag, and they kept it up, and they wouldn't let it be destroyed.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Another story I heard, which is sad, but one campus that was being destroyed and had arrests, and it kind of died down. The Jewish students are the ones that went in and cleaned up the graffiti and all the mess, the trash and everything. It's just sickening to me, but
That shouldn't be, but
here's my thing. I was telling Josh earlier, I would love to go to these campuses and ask these kids, where is the country of Palestine?
there is no country of Palestine.
Exactly. But they don't know that, I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know why they're there.
A lot of them don't, and that's what happened with the abortion protest in Indiana when we went down to support of life and met the protesters down there. Many of them thought it was a game or a joke or just something that they, know how you do something just to win.
Mm-hmm.
That was what they were doing. They didn't even care about the issue at all. It was flooring. It was crazy to have that kind of mentality. But
well, that's what I've seen on interviews, and we've talked about it, Josh. I think you saw some too. There are newscasters that are on site and interviewing these kids. And the one I watched, there were two girls, and he asked them, what do you want? Why are you here? And all they could say was to defend Palestine, support Palestine. And he said, well, what is the college doing? Because obviously you're here to protest something that the college is doing. You're on a college campus. What is the college doing that, is making you upset? And the one girl looked at the other girl, and she said, why are we here? I don't know. They came from another college. The other girl had a mask on, and she's like, I wish I were more educated. And I found that so ironic. You are from another nearby college. You came here for this protest, and how ironic that you're standing on a college campus saying, I wish I were more educated.
It's like, gee, it's almost like you're in an institution that's supposed to do that.
Right.
And just to step back to your earlier statement about that, between the what Biden said, definitely talking out of both sides of his mouth. Before the left tackles attaches themselves to that, when Trump said, find people on both sides, if you play that clip out just a little longer, he actually extends his statement, and he's not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. He condemns them totally. So I want to make sure that the people out there know that it's very crystal clear.
Yeah.
So
ding ding.
So that statement doesn't get used and turned against this podcast or anybody else, because yes. If you get just that clip, you see that it looks like he's.
That's the part they latched onto, which is why I was bringing it up. Yeah. Because the hypocrisy is so obvious right now. It's like people, but they count on people forgetting. They count on people having a short-term memory, and forgetting what happened before. Mm-hmm. That's the hypocrisy of it. Like, even, you're right. He said more, and he was right on that. But they only played that first clip. And the point is, Biden's doing the exact same thing now. without that second part to clarify.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He is for
He
Biden
is literally
for
doing
sure
what
talking out both sides of his mouth.
Yes.
Whereas Trump clarified, but of course they're always going to clip it. They're always going to take it
Yep.
down a little bit.
Yep. Right.
But we're going to bring things back into a little closer to home now on the second article of the night, because this comes from the Indiana Capital Chronicle. I just found this news organization today, so I might be reading more of their stories. But it says Indiana purchases another $5 million in Israeli bonds to a total of $110 million investment. Indiana State Treasurer Daniel Elliott announced the purchase of another $5 million in Israeli bonds on Wednesday, bringing Indiana's total investment in the U.S. ally to $110 million. Despite the hardships currently faced by the nation of Israel and their citizens, this is a quote by him, the economy and will of the Israeli people remains unbroken, Elliott said in the release. These investments are a reflection of he's saying but this is once again his quote, confidence in those markets and will provide great value for Hoosier taxpayers. It says, as a treasurer and chief investment officer, Elliott oversees Indiana's investment of nearly $17 billion in state assets. That seems kind of a lot of money to put in one person's hands. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm just saying. It says in 2023 legislative session, Elliott spearheaded an effort to remove politics, specifically environmental, social, and governance conscious investing, or ESG, for state investments before approving the purchase of $35 million in Israeli bonds several months later. Almost like two sides of the mouth once again, right? He's taking it from one thing we all support. We all don't want ESG. We don't like to see that go. But then let's send money overseas to help someone else when we could be helping people right here at home. The office told the Indiana Capital Chronicle the November investment still has 18 months left on its term at a bond rate of 5.28%. It noted that compared to an 18-month note for the U.S. Treasury, the Israeli bonds are 16 basis points higher. So
than ones in the U.S.
Yeah. So
the cost is more, or the return is more?
The return is 5 times more.
Okay. So I like that he invested in our friends instead of Iran, like our federal government has, and Ukraine, like our federal government has. I like that he stood against the ESG because that was a major issue. Yeah. Actually, one of his campaign promises was to, because at one point the federal government was going to track your transactions in anything more than $600.
Yes, I remember hearing that.
And so he was supposed to stand against that. I'm not sure what the outcome was on that. But overall, I think he's doing an okay job. That's all the comment I have on that, I think.
I don't know what to think about this, Josh. I was really on the fence about it. And the reason why is because it's a great return on investment if you're comparing U.S. bonds to Israel bonds. Mm-hmm. I know one of the financial tenets that you want to do, especially when you're like older, is live off your dividends. If you can invest enough to just live off dividends, then that keeps your worth higher, right? Mm-hmm. And you have more to pass down. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's on a personal level. But on a state level, to your point, it sounds like a lot of money just to invest in something. But then if you look at the return, and I didn't do the math, is that giving us back a good ROI? And what's the long-term plan? Because a bond's only good for so long.
Yeah.
So they're making money off of it. That's a good thing. But I don't have an opinion about it because I don't know enough about.
Well, and then what happens to those returns? What happens to that?
Right. Does that go back to the taxpayer? Does that go into investment in the state? Where does it go?
I'm sure it goes right back into the budget, or potentially, and I'd hate to say it, but somebody's pockets. And I'm going to lean towards that latter, just because I know how politicians tend to be. Not all politicians, but I know how a lot of politicians tend to be. I'm not saying that this particular person is doing that.
I have met Mr. Elliott. He is from farm country. He lived in a town of 200 for most of his life. So he's a small town person.
So he's someone he's approachable. We could
Yes,
certainly talk to him.
You
And
certainly could.
maybe talk him.
I would say to ask him that question.
Yeah, I think I'd like to talk him back from the ledge of sending out money to international needs, when personally I'd like to see who's your dollars stay in who's your pockets and never leave the state necessarily. And I'd like to see
but like in business, you have to make investments. So I don't know that's where I'm confused. Like, why is it something that had to be invested?
I just wonder if that was like a rule or
decided
something that
to
he was
invest?
following, or
Right.
I don't know if he was.
I don't know the backstory to it.
I don't
and it doesn't
either.
really spell it out in the
No.
article either.
So I couldn't really come to a conclusion on this one because I don't know.
But if he had to choose someplace, there again, Israel would be a best bet.
Yeah, especially
first
if
of all,
it's got a 5 times return.
Because it's a great
What you
return,
could
and
get in
also
the
because
US.
they're friends and allies.
Right. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And it's a tough subject, but I really would like to see that,
You should ask the question.
or
I think you
I
could,
would definitely like to
call
see
the
that money
office.
stay here, and what could we have done to use that money to invest within the state to draw more tourism, or just anything that we could have drummed up
Fix
that money.
potholes, you mean?
Yeah, that would be great.
Fix the roads.
Actually use that money that's for the roads.
Right.
Who would have
Oh
thought?
my, that
I mean,
needs
they earmarked
new
this
management.
money. They earmarked this money in budgets for certain things, and I don't understand because, to me, it's a balance sheet. You can take from one and put it into another. You just have to include it on the balance sheet, right? But for some reason, even businesses say, "Oh no, if it's earmarked for that, we can't just move it over for something else." I don't know enough to know why, and if that's really a thing, or if it's just they don't want to do it. But I want to know why the money's being invested in the first place. I just don't understand that. I don't know the backstory to it. But I mean,
Your question.
if it's given a return and it's something we don't need at the moment, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is shaky ground at best. I
It
would like to
is.
know a whole lot more, and I'd like to ask a whole lot more questions on it.
Yeah.
But when we talk about, people who are representing us and spending our dollars, and I mean,
And raising property taxes and raising the cost of
Right.
everything,
I would think some
the
of that.
state gas tax.
That's why I
and-
said, that's why I said some of that should go back to the people,
right.
right?
But we had the surpluses in the past too.
Oh, we
But-
have.
But then we had, somebody, I won't mention any names, running for governor that lost $1 million or $1 billion somehow. That came out recently. Our lieutenant governor that.
Crouch.
Mm-hmm.
speaking of people running for governor, that is our last story of the night.
Yeah, nice segue.
Coming from NPR. I don't know exactly how trusted that news source is, but we're using them because they are left leaning, and we don't want the left to say, "You don't ever use our sources," so we're using your source tonight, right here. Indiana will have its first competitive primary election in 2 decades. This is a very true title. 6 Republicans are vying to be the Republican nominee for governor in Indiana, with GOP Governor Eric Holcomb, Rhino, excuse me, had a little bit of a thing in my throat there, term limited after 8 years in office. But Holcomb isn't endorsing anyone in the race. I wonder why. It would just be a detriment to any one of them, even though the field includes his running mate and governing partner, Lieutenant Governor Susan Crouch. Holcomb first started getting questions about an endorsement a year and a half ago, but he resisted at first, acknowledging that Crouch needed to be her own candidate. He says, "I don't want anyone thinking that just because she and I work so closely together that she's a clone of me." Holcomb said. The winner of the primary election on May 7th will face former Indiana Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jennifer McCormick, the only Democratic candidate. Despite Holcomb's solid approval rating from Indiana voters, I don't know about that, but it's a little different in the Republican base. The right wing's anger is focused primarily on Holcomb's policies trying to combat COVID-19. You are right about that, NPR. You got that right on the head. Crouch has been happy to distance herself on that issue, as she should. I'm gonna move on down here because I want to just briefly mention the names of the people that are running. You got Suzanne Crouch, as we know, is current lieutenant governor. We have Senator Mike Braun. You can think of him what you will. I'm going to ask you to do your own research. I'm not going to read the extensiveness on that. Where we at? Eric Doden, I believe is his name.
Yes. He's out of Fort Wayne.
Yeah. And once again, not going to talk one way or the other about most of these candidates, except for one we'll get here at the end. Curtis Hill is another candidate running. And finally, and I would say most importantly,
Brad Chambers. Don't forget him.
Yeah, Mr. Burns. I mean, Brad Chambers. Yep. So, but most importantly, running also is Jamie Reitnauer. And if you watched the episode that we were on when we were on Mouthwash, or I was rather, I got to do an interview with her. So I do highly recommend go back and checking that out because she talks about her platform on there. And I think personally she'd be a great candidate for governor. So when May 7th comes, or even you want to do early voting, get down there and vote for her. I can give her my endorsement, my personal endorsement. I don't want to just say this overarching like revolver endorsement because I don't know how everybody else feels that I didn't ask them. So you got my endorsement, Jamie, for sure. But based on those candidate names, what does everybody think about this competitive primary?
We're all looking at each other. Who wants to go? I talked a lot. I feel like I need to shut up for a minute.
First. What do you think,
Brother James?
Brother James?
I just think you just need to, hopefully the right person gets put in there and takes care of us as a state in general. We have too many things wrong as a state and not enough things right. So hopefully whoever it is, we get the right person.
Well, I can tell you this about Jamie in particular. When I interviewed her, or one of the three people, I should say, make sure and acknowledge the fact that John and Watson were also there. But she talked about her faith leading her decisions. Much like Yvonne here, that we talk about on this show all the time, that God lens, looking everything through my faith and making my decisions based on that, or as Coy put it, God in the middle, and then out into the world. Everything, all your decisions, because God could be a better. In my case, God could be a better husband to my wife than I can. He can be a better brother to you than I can. He can be a better friend and colleague to Yvonne and Crystal here and Sterling than I can. So, and that, I think it sums up pretty well her platform. I mean, she also talked about taxes, which is very close to the vest for me. And, yeah, I think she's a highly viable candidate. I think Mike Braun, I thought I was going to be on board with him. He did get the Trump endorsement, but if you look at the guy's voting record, it's not good. It's not for the people. He also supported the riots in 2020, the Summer of Love, those things. He said he would even go out with them, be willing to go out with them. And so I was like, I think you're out. I'll say with Brad Chambers, I say Mr. Burns because he does look exactly like Mr. Burns from from The Simpsons. But also just based on going back and looking at the debates, all he could do was talk about how much he did in the business world. And I'm like, well, that's great. You could, it's good for a governing person to want to apply their business skills to a governing body because, you want more fiscal responsibility in your state. However, I don't feel like he brought heart to it. And I didn't see him a single time actually mention whether or not he even was of the Christian faith. And I personally want somebody who's leading with their faith.
And also with Brad Chambers, he was involved with the LEAP project, which if you don't know what that is, it's they're taking CO2 from the air and burying it in the...
That's part of the long-term plan. The immediate plan is to take 1 million, it's either 1 million or 1 billion gallons of water from the aquifer under the Wabash River and transport it 100 miles or something like that to an industrial
EV.
park that they're building.
For an EV factory.
Mm-hmm. Well, a whole industrial park.
Okay.
And what that's doing is decreasing the water in the Wabash because as you take out of the aquifer underneath it, it's going to decrease it. That aquifer feeds Illinois all the way to Maryland, first of all. Mm-hmm. So it's not just Indiana water that's going to be impacted because it's going to have to backfill, right? The other thing is the people who live around there are on wells. And by draining...
Boone County, by the way, James, just so
Yeah.
you know,
By
we know plenty of
draining-
people in Boone County, family in
Yeah,
particular.
by taking water out of the aquifer, they're going to have their wells drilled all over again. And they're have to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And the state won't pay for that. Nobody's going to pay for that. So these people are just screwed.
Yeah, and so they talk about what he's been talking about is working on the economy,
Right.
creating
To be
jobs.
careful with that.
And the problem is that we need water.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have water, it doesn't matter what kind of job we have. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good use of our resources.
And for those that don't know, Boone County is like north of Indianapolis on the east or on the west side of Indiana. They're also doing it down by Louisville in southwest Indiana on a different project.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of the two knew the other one was doing it. They're doing it under the Ohio River. So now you've got the Wabash River impacted by LEAP. You've got another project down there that's going to affect the Ohio River. What are they trying to do?
And it's this outside money.
It is.
That's another thing. Talk about
also-
who's your dollars and who's your pockets.
Yep.
Let's get rid of that outside influence.
Yep.
Let's scoot them on out of here. Let's push
If
it.
I remember, the IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Commission that's behind all this, which Brad Chambers and Eric Doden were tied to.
We're both involved.
Yes. I believe they took money from China or the WEF. I think we've traced that money back to one of those two. I can't remember which one it was, but it wasn't good. And it's not Indiana focused. It's a globalist thing. It's part of the 15-minute cities initiative.
Exactly.
That's where I was going with it. Yeah,
Yep.
they're trying to turn. If you don't know what a 15-minute city is, essentially it's like all of your quote needs would be met within 15 minutes of wherever you are. You can drive a maximum of 15 minutes, and you get to whatever your next need is. The problem with having everything so close is that everybody has to now live on top of each other, and something that might resemble pods. And
I'll say Tokyo
And add to that the EV vehicles, right?
Yeah.
The electric vehicles. The theory is long term they want to control your transport. So in the interest of climate change. And carbon emissions. So they can literally lock you into the 15-minute radius.
Right, because your
China already
car
does
won't
it.
go any further.
Right. China's already doing that. It's like an invisible fence, right?
They were telling me the cartoons, Simpsons, have totally predicted it again with the dome.
Well, they're pretty good. They're pretty good at it. But so you go to that another candidate. You talk about Curtis Hill a little bit. This guy's got his ducks in a row. I really like him as another candidate. Like I said, I've already given my endorsement to Jamie, but if I were going to give it to anybody else, I would go with Curtis Hill. Him and Jamie are fairly well lined up, and he is a former attorney general of the state, so he knows how the wheels turn in bureaucracy. He understands the system, and he has the very similar goals in mind that Jamie does.
And he did take a stand during COVID.
That as well.
And for abortion.
And for abortion.
He went to Illinois to bring back over 200 babies that were found on that guy's property that was performing abortions in his house.
And required that they have a proper burial.
Required that they have a proper burial.
Yeah.
Because they were Indiana babies.
Yeah.
So he
that
has a
crazy
heart
doctor
that
did
way.
all that.
Can I talk about my reviews of these people too? Because
I'd say we got time, right?
I'll make it
Where we at? Where we at? Where we at? All right.
I'll make it really quick. Suzanne Crouch is a globalist puppet. No doubt. And just a little tidbit of info. Her slogan is Axe the Tax. Every state I've ever known that has gotten rid of the income tax has a higher sales tax. So you're not going to get anything out of that. The other thing is there's already a plan in place to reduce the income tax. She has nothing to do with it. So she's taken that slogan and putting it out there like it's her idea. And if you watched, I believe it was the last debate, they nailed her on it. And she had to admit that. Yes, it's already a plan that's already been worked on. And we've already reduced it some. And we're going to continue reducing it for the next 20 years. She has no intention of doing anything drastic herself. She's riding the coattails of that plan. But here's another interesting tidbit I stumbled on the other day. In Canada, Trudeau is implementing a carbon tax. And guess what his opposers are, what their slogan is? It's Axe the Tax. How ironic is that? Did she get it from them or did they get it from her? Or is this a globalist thing like Build Back Better, which Build Back Better is a United Nations slogan that Biden took and uses? I mean, you got to trace this stuff back.
I was never going to vote for Crouch because she didn't stand up to the governor at the time she could have too.
Well,
also.
and not just that, but I have to say this on a funny note. She wears the exact same dress to every event I've ever seen her at, and I've been to about 5 and watched them on TV. It's the exact same dress. So, not a deal breaker, but I don't have respect for that. Buy another freaking dress. The other thing is...
Like, who are you wearing tonight? The same.
Yeah. It's my go-to. My lucky dress,
This is my
I guess.
uniform.
Right. It's her globalist uniform. The other one's Eric Doden, Brad Chambers, IEDC, Indiana Economic Development Commission ties. That's a big no for me. Mike Braun, I voted for him when he ran for the last election, and I have regret. And that's one that I have regret from. That's a no-go for me. The other one is Curtis Hill, and I saw all of them except Jamie at the Indiana Gubernatorial Forum. And they spoke, and it was a forum, not a debate, so they got to say whatever they wanted in their time frame. The one question that stood out to me was they asked him, what is the main job of a governor? Every one of them, before Curtis Hill, he was the last one to answer, said the main goal of the governor is economic improvement. Curtis Hill gets up and he said the main role of a governor is not economic improvement and development. The main role of a governor is to protect your freedoms. And in my head, I went, drop the mic. That's all I needed. Because the rest of them all said the same thing. He's the only one that stood out to me that was for freedom. And I don't remember his track record. I just kind of vaguely remember I liked him when he was AG. The only complaint he has against him is some sexual harassment complaint. And one of the people that...
Which they always drum up something,
One of the people,
falsely.
just to tell you how ridiculous this is, one of the accusations in the harassment was that he ran his hand down somebody's back. I was like, that happens on a daily basis to people. Like, you're going to pin your hat on that as sexual harassment? He ran his hand down your back? It's so insane to me. So I don't care about that. Like, even if it were true, which I don't think it is, these harassment claims, I don't care. Because what I care about is policy and what you stand on and what you stand for, right? So, and I didn't I won't say that. I didn't know much about Jamie before your interview with her and the debate that she was able to be in the last time.
Right.
And man, she's like dead on for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I still have reservation only because she hasn't been involved and Curtis has. But she ran before. I remember her running before for office.
Really?
And she didn't win. And she's had time to prepare herself and to learn the ropes and to be involved. And I love the fact that she has actively been going all around the state. And I'm not talking to the normal places that they go that we never see them at. I'm talking small town places, churches, all these different things. And I love that about her because she seems to be for the people.
I saw her sign off McGregor Road today.
You did?
I did.
There's one up by my house in Wayne Township, which shocked the crap out of me.
Yeah,
because
it was kind of cool.
Wayne Township is so far left, but I loved it. I was really happy. So that's all I have to say. Sorry.
So
I kind of fall where you do. I'll just say that. I like Curtis Hill and I also like Jamie Rittenauer.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my two favorites right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
I have to think about it, pray about it.
Exactly.
So make sure you get out and vote.
Make
sure you get out and vote. Make sure you're voting for this gal right here.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's our good friend, the softer side of Faith, Family, and Politics, Yvonne Metcalfe. Yay!
Where's that little American flag?
Failed.
Oh yeah,
what you failed.
He's waving it behind the camera, folks. He's waving it behind the camera, feverishly. And then next to her, the host of The Agenda with Crystal Risotti.
Right there. Wait, where is it?
Yeah,
there.
over there. Yep. Across from her, you know him, you love him. He's my brother, Brother James.
Yeah, everybody loves me, the brother.
And just before we get to who I am, I think we can have a closing prayer. Would you mind giving us a closing prayer, Yvonne?
Okay, absolutely. We're gonna cover this thing in prayer.
Yes.
Oh, dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time that we could talk about these issues that are important, and we pray that you would give us wisdom and as we go to vote and help the people to listen and to glean something from that and to possibly step up themselves, Lord, if you would call them, Lord. I pray that you would help me as I continue on this road on my journey. And we'll just thank you for everything that you're going to do because we know that you're going to take care of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. I've been your host, Joshua Cummins, reminding you to stay in trouble, get out and vote, and we'll see you next week.
And go to revolverbroadcasting.com.
Yes, do that too.